Hello, everyone. My name is Ben, and I'm the Communications Coordinator at TechSoup Canada. I'd like to welcome and thank all of you for joining us for today's webinar, Email Fundraising, Getting, Sending, and Optimizing, with the one and only Brady Josephson of Shift. Before we get started, I'm going to quickly introduce you to TechSoup Canada. Our mission is to help nonprofits use technology effectively, and we accomplish this in two ways. The first is to make technology products more affordable through our technology donations program. We partner with tech companies such as Microsoft, Adobe, and Symantec, and offer their products as either an outright donation or at a significant discount for charities, nonprofits, and libraries across Canada. Membership is free, and it gets you access to the donated and discounted software from more than 30 tech companies. Through this program, we've helped over 31,000 nonprofits save more than $360 million in tech investments. The second way we try to help nonprofits use technology effectively is by creating and curating nonprofit tech resources. We write blogs, curate content on social media, and host events and webinars like this one to help nonprofits learn more about the technologies that can help them in their day-to-day work. So if there is a topic you'd like to hear about, please let us know. We're always eager to get feedback from our members. For today's webinar, you can use the GoToWebinar panel on the right-hand side of your screen to change your audio settings, enter your questions, or chat with us. At the end of the webinar presentation, we will have a formal Q&A session where I'll ask questions to the speaker on your behalf. Just a reminder that all of you are on mute, so if you have any questions or concerns, feel free to chat to us in the question box. Also note that this webinar is being recorded and we will upload the video to our website shortly. So it's now my pleasure to introduce our speaker for today. Brady is charity nerd, entrepreneur, digital marketer, professor, and writer. He's the founder and chief strategist at Shift, a digital-first agency, and CEO of Nonprofit Supply Co., an online advertising company with a focus on the Google Ad Grant. Brady hosts the Good Journey Pod, is an adjunct professor at North Park University School of Business and Nonprofit Management, contributes to the Huffington Post, and manages his own great blog at recharity.ca. Follow him on Twitter at Brady Josephson. So without further ado, I'm passing the presentation over to Brady.
Thank you very much, and thanks everyone for coming, taking some time out of your day. We got a lot to get through, but it'll be fun, hopefully engaging, and we'll get you out of here learning more about email fundraising, and hopefully you can apply it even in the next few important months. So I want to start with a quiz. Don't worry, no one's actually being tested here. We'll have a few different tests along the way, but I just want to start with this quiz. So I'm going to show you two treatments or two options. Here's option A, so it's an email pointing to then a donation page. Here's option A, and then here's option B. Here's a different form, but same email going to same donation page, just styled and a few little tweaks. And as we go through these tests, maybe just jot it down on a piece of paper, or you can raise your hand even though no one can see you, but just or say out loud because we can't hear you, A or B. But which one of these treatments do you think would lead to more donations or raise more money, A or B? Give you a couple seconds to think and raise your hand. In this case, option B led to 272% increase in conversions or in donations. We'll talk a little bit about maybe why that is, or some of these reasons that you can then apply to your emails and donations. But the big purpose or point here is that you don't always know, neither do I, and that's okay. Best practice, a lot of what we're going to talk about today, this is just the starting point. Best practice is not the end point. So what we're going to cover today, here's kind of the agenda where we're going to head. This is based on my experience, some research from a partner in the States called Next After, some of our own tests, some of my own research and learnings, but this is just what I've learned or what I believe, what I know as a starting point, as a best practice. But then from there, it's you to contextualize the organization, to apply it, to test it, and so on. Just a couple housekeeping things. These slides will be sent out, so just jot down notes and questions. Questions are great. Please ask questions, and you can ask questions afterwards to me on Twitter, or that's my email as well. Ben already did a good job plugging stuff, so I'll move past, but I would encourage you to check out this podcast. I really like it. I mean, I'm the host, so I'm biased, but I think it's great. You get a more kind of unguarded conversation with some really, really smart people talking about cool things in the nonprofit charity space. And then this isn't my company, but plugging them anyways, because we use a lot of their research, and you can too. All their research is publicly available, and they produce these great ebooks and guides for you, and I'll reference a lot of them as we go. All right, so the first section, email fundraising. Does this look familiar to you? This is actually my inbox, which is an absolute nightmare. This is my personal inbox, just a disaster, right? You got the different tabs, you've got all these open emails, you've got subscriptions, things you don't know. And maybe your email isn't as bad as mine, but it's probably not super clean, right? So why in the world would we want to be trying to get in there with our donors and possible supporters? Well, I'll give you a few reasons. One, the number of donors that are coming and giving from online is continually going up. So I've heard at some conferences or sometimes you hear speakers talking about it's all about social media or something like that, when in reality, email is just continuing to grow in prominence when it comes to online fundraising. So it might sound like an old school strategy, but email is very much valuable and continues to grow, particularly as older generations or people kind of 50 and above adopt technology and use email more. Another key point is we talk about email. I'm not going to differentiate between a mobile strategy versus a non-mobile strategy because email is fundamentally mobile. The majority of people are answering and responding their emails on mobile nowadays. So I guess the one caveat or thing to say here is your emails must be optimized, viewable, accessible on mobile. And oftentimes you're trying to use an email to point to your website. So therefore your website should also be optimized on mobile. It's crazy that I even need to mention that, but I do need to mention that. So I will mention that, but email is mobile. And what's kind of neat is mobile giving is growing. So not like text-based giving, but donations coming from a mobile device. On the left there, you're seeing some information from Blackbaud about the steady increase of percentage of online donations from a mobile device. And in the bottom right, some information from Dunham & Company. So I don't think mobile giving or giving from a mobile device will ever be really, really prominent, just because often we're on mobiles on a bus or on a train. And until we can figure out the payment processing to make it easier for people on a mobile, it'll always be tricky. But it is growing. And this is, again, tied to the fact that email and email fundraising is growing. Therefore, mobile giving is also growing. And then email is really valuable, not just in the context of online fundraising, but on an average gift basis. So this is an actual client of ours where we look at their donations by channel. And email, when we do this analysis, email is often kind of number 2 in terms of volume. Sometimes it's number 1, sometimes it's number 3. But when you break it down into something like average gift, email almost all the time is the highest average gift source when it comes to online donations. And a lot of that is because what we can do with email, in theory, and we'll talk about some of this, is we can personalize it, we can be more direct, we can be more specific, we can show more value. So we can do some cool things that can inspire more donors to give and have some clarity about what their donation will do, which is more challenging on some other platforms, say like social media or search, or even coming from a blog or organic or something like that. So email is very, very valuable. It's rising in prominence, it's mobile, and that's what we're here to talk about today. This is one of the very few maxims, which is still for the most part true in fundraising, but sending more quality emails to more qualified people means more revenue for your cause. Now, this isn't like 100%, but it's probably like 95%. For the most part, we don't send enough emails to enough people that are of quality. So when we look at trying to grow digital fundraising or online fundraising over a period of time, which is what we do at Shift and what I kind of do in my work, capturing and sending more quality emails to qualified people is the cornerstone strategy. It's a lot of what we focus on. And that's what we'll talk about today. I want to share a couple metrics because I'll talk about things like click-through rate or response rate. So just kind of want to break a few of those down so that we have a shared understanding, and also pass along a couple benchmarks here from M&R, who do a great benchmark study. So the first metric here is open rate. So that's just the number of opens, people who opened an email divided by sent. And you'll see the industry average here. These are for larger organizations with really large files, but for email fundraising and email advocacy, 13% open rate is kind of the benchmark there. Click-through rate, so that's the number of people who clicked an email divided by those who were sent the email. So click-through rate for fundraising appeals is 0.38%. And email advocacy is obviously a bit higher there at 1.9%. So response rate, these are the number of conversions, often donations, divided by the number of sent. You'll see that response rate 0.05%. Again, they're dealing with large lists and high volume, but this is one of the reasons why, as valuable as email is, we have to send more emails. A lot of times people don't open, right? 13%, then click, 0.38%, and then actually convert, 0.05%. So it's a reason why we need to do better and provide more value, optimize the experience, but it's also a reason why we do need to send more emails typically throughout the year. List size, so this is normally just the number of subscribers or active subscribers. You can do total number of emails sent, but normally list size is how many people are actively subscribed to your list. And then churn rate is important as well. So churn rate is, in its simplest form, is people who became unreachable from unsubscribes or bounce rates divided by the number of people who were reachable, say at the start of that period. So often this is on a yearly basis. And what you'll see there at the bottom is that these organizations on average had a 14% email list churn, which means just 14% of their email list was lost in the course of a year for a variety of reasons. And their net email list growth, so the number of new emails divided by, or minus old emails divided by the list where it started, gets you at a growth figure, and it was about 10%. So these are some of the metrics and kind of benchmarks, again, that we'll be talking about as we go through and discuss email fundraising. So while we're on metrics, I have another quiz for you. Maybe you got the first one right or wrong. Maybe you didn't. Actually, I should have you send in your scores after this. That'd be fun. All right, so here's option A. Here's a really, really, really long email, fundraising email. And then here's a really, really short email. So obviously in this test, it was really long versus really short. And which of these two options do you think led to more clicks? Give you a second. A, B. All right, so the email, the short one, a 1,200% increase in click-through rate. Way, way, way more clicks. So it's great, right? No, 30% decrease in donations. What is the goal of this particular email? It's not to get clicks, it's to get donations. So this is a common misunderstanding and misconception when it comes to email fundraising and metrics. Often we'll track things like open rate, but our goal is donations. So we're actually looking at the wrong metric. And even click-through rate isn't often the right thing. If you just want clicks, there's a bunch of things you can do. Images, videos, shocking headlines, these will all help you get clicks, but often they're actually detrimental when it comes to getting donations. So when you go through and you're testing and looking at metrics, you have to make sure you are using the right metric to measure the right goal. There are some times when you do just want clicks, you do want people to read a video, that's great. The majority of our conversation today will revolve around fundraising and donations. So often in that case, that's where response rate or donation conversion is most important to measure. Because a really long email with fewer clicks can often lead to more donations, and that's the end goal here. So be careful with the metrics that you're looking at and measuring and monitoring. All right, so the first section, how can we go about getting more emails? So again, just refresher why getting emails is important. The more quality emails you send, the more qualified people is more revenue. And then you also have that natural churn rate. So if you're not continually getting new emails online, offline, your email list or the natural reach in your online fundraising will actually kind of start decreasing. So you kind of need to replace 15%-ish just to be at the starting point, let alone trying to grow an email list. So here's kind of like 3 simple steps, and we'll talk about these to actually go about getting more emails. Again, it's not easy, but there's some things you can do to make it a little easier. So the first part is creating an offer. And here's what I mean by kind of creating an offer, or a better way maybe is saying show value. When it comes to fundraising, here's the kind of fundamental question that we're trying to answer. If I'm your ideal donor, why should I support you rather than some other organization or not at all? We could do a whole hour on value proposition and how to position your cause in fundraising, but this is fundamentally what we're trying to answer in our marketing communications. So we're trying to show that the value factors, things like motivation and clarity and incentive, are greater than cost factors like friction and anxiety. Do I trust this organization? How many fields do I have to put up with? Is this on mobile? So value is greater than cost, they'll take the action. That's the summary of why people do anything, but especially when it comes to fundraising, donating, signing up for email. We're trying to provide value and make sure that it outweighs the costs. So in terms of securing an email, then the question is more like this. If I'm your ideal donor, again, not everyone will care about you, so you don't have to care about everyone back. If I'm your ideal donor, why should I give my email to you rather than some other organization or not at all? And the not at all option is very real, right? Inboxes, you saw mine, it's chaos. We feel like we're gonna get spammed. It's tricky. So how can we promote value? We have to answer through one of these 4 factors or a combination. So the first is appeal. Why would I want to sign up? Do I like this organization or this email or this cause in the first place? Exclusivity, how is this any different than another organization? Or can I get this type of content or information anywhere else? Another one is credibility. So why should I trust you to either give me that content or respect my inbox? And do I believe you? Even if you say that you'll do these things, why should I believe you? And clarity, what will I even get when I sign up? And this is a really big one when people sign up for email, especially if we don't give them some clarity or answers. They don't know if they're gonna get an email a day asking for money every time. Are they gonna get cool videos? They really don't know what they're going to get. And this lack of clarity can cause anxiety and make people not provide their email to get more information. So what will they get and do they understand you? So a few examples, again, of just how some organizations use these 4 appeal factor or for these 4 value proposition factors to get emails. The first here is just a Charity Water example. So they're just talking about add impact to your inbox, right? Sign up to receive stories, updates from Charity Water. They're worthwhile, we promise. So a cool little tone. And then even though this isn't exactly what their emails look like, they're trying to show you to provide some of this clarity of what will you get? Oh, you'll also get something like this, right? High visual, beautiful. That's kind of their brand. This is what you'll get. So this is how they're trying to use appeal, but then also tap into a little bit of clarity by showing you an example. Exclusivity, so this was a client of ours who does a run every year, but then they started doing smaller trail races and started providing more like race resources. So that was kind of exclusive. So yeah, they were doing water projects in Ethiopia, but they also had these great races with a great racing community. So we said, wait, why don't you get information on races and information? That's more exclusive to them. Then we also, here's a credibility example. So this is a test that was ran. So you'll see treatment on the left, treatment on the right. And instead of saying what the course schedule is, they just said what other students say. So this could be what other donors say, what other supporters say about your organization, and it just builds credibility from other people. So you can talk all day long about how great you are, but other people saying how great you are is more important often. So here's one way to kind of say, do I believe you? And it helps get that credibility for people to sign up for an email. And then again, this clarity factor that there's a treatment on the left, treatment on the right. The big difference is just this headline. So especially faith-based organizations, of which this is one, we use a lot of kind of insider and fluffy language that maybe means something, but it's not very clear or direct. So vulnerable and lifting up the fatherless, like what? Orphans and vulnerable children, it's a lot more clear to understand. So then they go on to support their kind of clarity or value proposition about this pledge and what you'll kind of do when you sign up for email. But using just the headline or trying to figure out how to be more clear with what you're asking people to do is hugely, hugely important. And a key principle here is some offer is better than no offer. If you look at your own site or other sites, often the email sign up is found in the header or maybe the footer, and it's just email sign up or e-newsletter, right? And it's name and email. And there's no offer. There's nothing about what you'll get. There's nothing about why they should sign up. And so even just starting to chip away at how is this appealing or exclusive or build credibility, even in small ways, some offer is better than no offer. I can guarantee you. So even just infusing your page and site with a little bit of that. So now you kind of create this offer, right? You're chipping away. It doesn't need to be the best offer ever. How do you present it? So the first part is on a landing page. Having a dedicated landing page for email signups is strongly, strongly encouraged. Here's an example of one. So we're just saying, get stories, news, involved. Vancouver's downtown east side. We're trying to do some appeal, right? It's not the best offer in the world, but it's a bit more clear. So we have it on the page so people can sign up. But there's some ways to kind of optimize or improve your landing page. Next After did a great job of summarizing a lot of the research to come up with these 13 different ways So I'll dissect our own landing page using some of these principles and say how this page could be better. So for example, up top, we've got all these other links for people to go to. You can click menu and get 100 different links. You've got work, involve, donate. So we could remove those distractions. We've got a bunch more content and information in the footer. We've got this donation bar. None of these things are really helping someone figure out why they should sign up for email, right? So we can remove the distractions. Do images help? There's some research and studies that, yeah, images can help. By the way, video almost never helps conversion on pages, whether it's donations or emails. But do images help? Maybe. If so, which images? Then here, actually breaking down the offer, instead of news, that's a terrible headline, right? We should have a more inspiring or clear offer in the headline, even if the subcopy is okay. But maybe we need more copy with some bullets saying, you know, volunteer opportunities, get more specific about how they could volunteer. So, and then also better language, submit, right? This is like a robotic language, submit your email to us, right? Instead, we could have something like, I want to learn more today, or something that's more engaging. All these things can help. And then what about this white space that's kind of weird and we're not using? What if we had a donor quote, or how many people are on the email list, or something like that, something that can build credibility and trust. So having a landing page is great. Having an offer is most important. And then there's some ways that you can kind of micro optimize along the way to see if your landing page can get more emails or do a better job at converting people into email sign up. And then kind of infiltrating, that's the wrong word, integrating these asks and offers throughout your kind of natural site navigation is important. So for this client, this isn't a great offer, but it is prevalent on every page. So it's easy to find if you wanted to sign up, and casual folks can easily find it. And then there is a link down there in the footer. So having more opportunities where people can find out about how to sign up for an email is important, because people are not going to look very long or very hard to find out where they can sign up for more information. So at least footer, looking at certain pages where it makes sense to have an ask, maybe not for a donation. So then, hey, why not learn more about meals and hospitality, sign up for email and get regular updates on meals in the downtown east side. There's ways to infuse your site with a few more calls to action in the navigation and as well as the page. And then with a pop-up. So here's two examples of some pop-ups or sliders or sticky bars, whatever you want to call them, but they're kind of quote unquote distractions, but they're things that can often help work, but also provide and kind of prod someone, say, hey, is this information useful? How about you want to learn more? And a lot of people will actually take you up on this offer. So on the left, this is one of our pop-ups. Again, it's not the biggest, greatest offer in the world. It's just saying, do you want to learn more about this organization? Sign up for the newsletter, get information and updates on programs. Dead simple, but it helps a bit. And about 1.5% of people who see this pop-up sign up for more information. And those are all people, for the most part, that wouldn't dig to the bottom of the footer, click email, sign up. So we're just saying, is this content useful? Here's how you can get more. And on the right is the pop-up version of Charity Water's offer, again, with the add impact to your inbox. So here's another quiz for you. We've got 3 treatments this time, so keeping it spicy. Here's option A. I know it's a really, really long page. I'll call out the differences of them. So here's A, which is content heavy, and then B, they added an inline offer. So after kind of midway through the page, they had said an ask if you wanted to sign up for emails. And then option C, they used a pop-up or a slider. So in this case, which do you think led to more email conversions, A, B, or C? So B led to a 350% increase in conversions, but C led to a 470% increase in conversions. So 2 key things that I want you to take away. One, I know people are annoyed at pop-ups. If you do them well, they can be really, really useful. But the key thing is you have to ask. It's similar to fundraising. You can't just have a donate button on your site and just assume people will navigate, click, and convert. You have to ask. So if you have to ask, make sure you have an offer and are providing value. But things like pop-ups and sliders and inline offers are really, really effective, much more effective than just having a link in your footer. So presenting and promoting, and then continuing the engagement. So what happens after someone fills out that form, right? So you should point them to a thank you or a confirmation page that says, thank you so much, we'll be in touch, and then provide some other ways or information for them to learn more, to get involved. It doesn't need to be anything crazy fancy. It can be something pretty simple like this. So thank you pages are great for user experience, but they're also really useful for tracking. So if you want to get into setting up, say, a goal or what is a conversion, say within Google Analytics, which you should, it's the only way you can really run tests and start learning more about what works or what doesn't. Having that thank you or confirmation page is the easiest way to set up that goal for tracking. So it's good for them, user experience, it's good for you, tracking. So you should have thank you pages. And then one thing that is maybe counterintuitive is present another relevant offer, often to give right after someone has signed up for an email. So for example, here's a pop-up we use with a client. Again, not the most world-changing offer, but an offer. And then after they fill in their email, then we say, thank you for signing up. This isn't the best fundraising offer either, but did you know just $50 can restore someone's site? Give today. We get about 1% of people who fill out the first part of the form go on to make a donation. One small action, people are raising their hand saying, I'm interested in this, let me learn more. And while they're in that small action interested phase, it does make sense that they would maybe be interested in taking another action. So on your thank you page or on a confirmation page, having a soft ask for donations is a great way to raise money pretty quick and seamlessly or in a pretty easy way. So now they've signed up, they filled out the form, you have to welcome them. They just gave you your email. I'm not talking about, please confirm that you're not a robot. I'm talking about welcoming them to the fold. So you don't maybe have to do a full automated welcome series like this, but at the very least, confirm their sign up and warmly welcome them and say thanks. At the very, very least. Some of the other things you can do in these welcome emails is give them a sense of what to expect. Like, hey, we send emails roughly every week. So that they know when they start getting an email every week that you told them that you'd get that. You can guide them to learn more, right? Say, here's our latest financials, not always great. Here's a story, probably better. Invite them to get involved, right? Here's how you can volunteer. Here's how you can follow us on Facebook and use your voice. Obviously, make the case for a donation you can do, and share the value of monthly giving. We often build in a monthly giving kind of soft-ish appeal into all the welcome series, because we want to plant that seed of, if you really want to support us in the best way, monthly giving is how you go about doing that. So here's just an example of one of these welcome series. So here's like the thank you email where we're pointing people to a video. And then in this case, they've got, a bunch of different countries and programs. So we're saying, what information do you want to hear? You can customize your updates. Then we have a soft ask for donations where we're talking about the story and Tala, and here's the difference you can make. And then the last one is the monthly giving program, how you can help all year long. But these 4 emails go out each 1 week apart, which is probably on the long end, but people will get some information to learn more and engage the organization in that first 30 days when they're really engaged. So it kind of is interesting that we are not continually doing better at welcoming people. So this comes from an online fundraising scorecard where 63% of organizations were sent an email to someone after 30 days after sign up, which means 37% of organizations sent no emails in 30 days to this person who just signed up for an email. And only 47% of organizations sent more than 1 email. This is a prime, ripe time where someone says, I'm interested in your organization, I'm giving you my information, and I'm letting you and inviting you to contact me. We have to take advantage of this time to connect and engage people who are willing to receive this. And at this point, this was a couple years ago, but only 12% of organizations in this study actually had a welcome series. Tools like MailChimp, which is our preferred email tool, make it very, very easy to do a basic welcome series. And it should be something that basically all organizations do. There's other ways of automated series that you can do beyond welcome. So if you did like a petition or a unique action, you can have a special series for that, a new donor, a new monthly donor, an online donation, old or new, volunteer, fundraiser, basically anything where people sign up or come in through a form of some kind. There's ways that you can create custom content in an automated way. So automate when you can and personalize where you can. So the downside of automations sometimes is that we start talking like robots or we don't know people. So if we can balance the automation with the personalization, it can be a winning formula. So that's some of how we can go about getting emails, right? We have to have an offer, we need to promote it, we need to convert them, thank and engage, hopefully have some kind of welcome series or email after we get the email. But then what about sending emails throughout the rest of the year? What are some of those key components in sending a great email? So again, we need to answer this question, especially when it comes to fundraising. If I'm your ideal donor, why should I give to you rather than some other organization, or not at all? So again, these value factors of appeal, exclusivity, credibility, and clarity, we can answer those, but in the context of donation. These good emails should offer value for the reader, not just the sender, right? We need your money. That's not a great value add offer to donors. So think about value in these 4 ways to donors. So here's a couple examples. These are from donation pages. The emails are hard to pull out copy in a presentation, but so these are principles of using something like appeal, right? Tax deductible, strategic investment, future of America for Americans. That's an appealing sentence or statement. Exclusivity, Charity Water has their 100% model. That's pretty unique to them. That's a version of exclusivity that you can build into your email offer. Credibility, so visually, this is how this organization is displaying it because they've been featured in different publications. In an email, you can do that with visual, say in your footer, right? We've been mentioned in these organizations. You can do it in copy with links saying, hey, read about us on the Wall Street Journal. That's probably better than reading about you on your own site. Not that everyone's in the Wall Street Journal, but using credibility or other people. And then again, this clarity of understanding, do I know what your organization does and what my donation will do? Simple and clear is important. Here's an organization that we did an audit with, and it's just one of the best examples of how we think we're talking in clear terms, but we're really not, right? So invest in sustainable change, partner with Wellspring, and we have this picture of this woman with a tree. And I've asked a bunch of different audiences, and very rarely does anyone get it correct about what this organization actually does to who and where. So the organization actually does teacher training. They're fantastic in Rwanda. So if you know that, or if you've been there, you understand what sustainable change means. You know that this woman in the white coat is actually a teacher or a teacher trainer. You know the countries at Rwanda. You fill in the gaps, but when people don't know you and they show up, invest in sustainable change, and this woman could be anywhere in the world doing anything, right? It doesn't mean anything. And we do this all the time with our copy. We're vague. In our design, we send pictures that aren't specific, and we assume that donors know what we know, and they definitely do not. Lack of clarity is the biggest reason donors don't give. So yes, you can focus on things like appeal and exclusivity, but fundamentally just answering the question of what specifically will my donation do is the biggest reason why donors don't click the donate button or complete a donation process. Right behind it is credibility. So if you're clear this is what your donation do, the next question is, why do I believe you? So if you can answer those 2, those are more important in my opinion than the other 2. The other 2 can get kind of into cool marketing and campaigns. Is better than no value proposition, I guarantee you. So trying to chip away at that is important. So then again, if you're coming from an email, this is kind of just marketing 101, but we have our offer and design and what we're saying your donation will do. It needs to be consistent through the process. Email to landing page to donation conversion. Consistency with the donation page is important. That's the goal of where we're pointing people when it comes to fundraising emails. We're pointing from email to donation page. So it has to be consistent, and the more consistent, the better. So then these are the 10 main elements of a fundraising email. We'll break them down quickly one by one. So we've got the sender right here is number 1. So that's the sender as it shows up in your inbox. Who's it from? Right above, you'll see an example from a different water charity who's tried to personalize it. So Jeff Golby is their executive director. So that's the sender, who it's from. You got the reply email, who they can reply to. Please don't make this like admin at, or even an info at isn't great, but if you, like Charity Water here is use team, you can use someone's name, but like a different version of their name. So if it's Jeff at Axe, you can use Jeff G at Axe. But this is a simple way to personalize an email so people don't feel like they're giving and interacting with robots. Send time. We've done a lot of tests on send time, different days, different hours, and I haven't found some like magic time to send an email. Generally, Fridays aren't great, and generally Mondays aren't great, but pretty much every other day of the week is worth a test. And it's either best to get an inbox in the morning, so you're fighting with everyone else who sends them, or you try to send it maybe like lunch or early afternoon where people are kind of looking for a distraction. And you should test evening, because a lot of times people aren't willing to make a purchase while they're sitting there at work, but potentially evening. So send time something you can test. I haven't cracked the code there, but generally avoid Mondays and Fridays. Subject line, so this is obviously very important. It's one of the things that we all scan and look through, and it gives us a sense about what's inside or why we should open. And then increasingly, this is very important, is the preview text. So sometimes this is default, but good email programs like MailChimp will let you customize this. And this is like a longer version of the subject line, where you can continue on from the subject line to say, here's what's kind of inside, and you can provide a little bit more copy. But the goal with these main things is to get someone to read or open the email, right? And this is what they can look like in your inbox. And I mean, all inboxes are different. This is Gmail, but those are the 5 main components that kind of lead you to the open, say, or lead you to opening the email with a degree of motivation. Of these, the subject line is paramount. It's hugely, hugely important. So we'll do another quiz here. Option A, spring cleaning is in full swing at First United. Option B, spring cleaning is in full swing. Join us. Option A, option B. Option B led to a 42% increase in click-through rate. So not opens, again, we're trying to get people to join us, led to click-through rate by using the subject line. Because we said join us, we let people know, in this case, it's an action. So maybe we got fewer opens, that's fine. We got a better click-through rate and more clicks, which is what the goal was. So subject line can also help lead to further down the line metrics like clicks and conversions. But try being more clear with what you're offering instead of just or asking for in the subject line. If it's a donation, maybe ask for a donation. You may get fewer opens, but you'll probably get more donations. And then a tip on subject lines is don't sit down and try to like write the perfect subject line, you know, have this moment of inspiration. Maybe just open up a Google Doc or write on your paper and just write a bunch of them out as they come to you, 5, 10, 15, then kind of pause and maybe work your way back and start eliminating the crappy ones, maybe getting some feedback from other people. But don't just sit there and try to write the perfect subject line. It's also something that's very easy to test for most email programs. All right, so those are the first 5 elements. Then we get in these other elements where we have the design. So that's the overall look and feel and vibe. You've got copy length, right? Is it short? Is it long? You've got tone. Is it personal? Is it coming from a person? How does it feel? How does it sound? Do you use images or not? What do the images convey? And then what's the call to action? So in this case, it's give monthly. Here's another quiz looking at kind of this part of the email equation. Here's a test. So here's a very, very, very plain, simple email versus a more classic kind of designed email. Option A, option B. In this case, option A led to 46% increase in donations. And when it comes to fundraising appeals, we often find that a more plain, stripped down email design leads to more donations. And I think it's partly because there's fewer distractions. People aren't looking at images and different things. They could just focus on what is this copy or what is this offer. But it also comes across feeling more personal, right? And that's really what we're trying to do, is connect with someone and make the case for why they, as a values-based person, should live out their values by making a donation and by giving to your organization. The other thing that's really, really important is tone. Again, building off the kind of design, the tone is in the copy. We'll look at a couple examples that people sent in, but we'll often send copy that's very we-focused, us-focused, or we'll talk about brands and we'll talk about ourselves in the third person. And then our marketing messages become just like every other marketing message out there. Instead of focusing on how personal we are and how we're changing lives and making an impact in people's lives, making a difference. So tone is really important for us charities fundraising. So here's another quiz, option A. Here's an example from Sonia. Moms equal the heart of Caring Bridge. So kind of a quirky, cool, little intriguing subject line versus from Camille Scheel. You amaze me, Jeff. 132% increase in open rate, right? That email sounds a bit more like a person. They used, and this was sent to Jeff, they used his name. It comes across as more personal. Just try thinking about writing an email as a human, sending it to another human. Or what would you say to someone over coffee? Then that's what you should put in an email. Or how would you write this one email to your mom, right? Not that your mom's your ideal donor, but that personal tone and vibe is something that we need to get in. And then we can't forget about donation page. This is another whole session, but again, if we're using email to point people to a donation page, we have to be thinking about donation pages. Website conversion rate, this is again from M&R, 1.2% of all traffic turns into a donation, and only 18% of people who click and land on a donation page actually complete the donation. Gravity is pulling people out of our marketing funnels, not in. So we have to make the donation page easy, right? You've done all the hard work, remove distractions, don't have weird circle loops, restate your value, don't use tiny little buttons, don't use unnecessary copy, don't have unnecessary forms. Use your forms, make them look pretty by using vertical and horizontal space well, right? Don't ask for too much information. Don't ask for information you won't use. Use more warm language. Don't that's actually good. Have trust marks. Don't have other distracting links. There's so many things that we can do to improve the donation page. So maybe your emails are great and your donation page sucks. It'll look like your emails also suck. These two things are very, very connected. I'll skip that. Here's a couple of great resources from Next After as well, of 23 ways to improve donation pages and 13 ways to improve landing pages. But it's basically removing distraction and restating value. If I had to summarize, those are the two core components. All right, so now optimizing emails, we're trying to get them, we're trying to send them. Now how do you optimize, especially on the sending side? Here's two great resources on how to test and experiment. Again, they come from Next After. 7 strategies to optimize, or things to test. Sender, measure every metric. That what they mean there is, even if you're trying to use a subject line to get more opens, see what the down the line impact is, because maybe that statement leads to more donations versus another. So track the different metrics. Personalization in emails, copy length, right? Longer is maybe worse for clicks, but better for donations. Images, do they really help? Just because everyone else has images doesn't mean you have to. Your email template, is it helping or hurting? It could be hurting. A more personal tone. And then they also have another guide that walks you through how to actually launch an experiment with tools and identifying your goal, crafting a hypothesis, things like that. So on the testing side, here's the 4 that I think are more important to test or to look at is the personalization. Length, you'll often be told shorter is better. That may not be true. It's worth testing. Your template may be not great, so maybe try doing the undesigned or trying a different template. And again, that personal tone is huge. And as far as launching an experiment, these are kind of the 3 mistakes or things to avoid. One is measuring. So again, if you're wanting to test emails for donations, but you can't actually track donations by email, then it's going to be really hard to test. The other is crafting a hypothesis. So make a guess. Do you think having more copy that's more personal will lead to more donations? Then jot it down. Not having a hypothesis or guess before a test isn't super useful when testing. And then document it. There's ways that you can actually document them besides a spreadsheet and share with your team, but then you can create more of a historical database of what worked or what didn't, so that next year when it comes around and saying, what should we do for email? You can say, hey, last year this is what we did and this is what the results were. What if we test something different? So again, you'll get the slides, so I won't spend too much time, but this is a tool to validate your own test. MailChimp is our preferred tool. It does have nonprofit rates. It integrates with a lot of tools. A/B testing is very easy. Google Optimize is a free tool which measures your Google Analytics. You don't need to know code, so you can do changes to your donation or landing pages. So you can change a headline and measure the results very, very easily, very simply. It's a great, great, great free tool to test. And now a couple live examples before we get to your questions. We had 2 people submit some emails, some brave souls. So just a couple caveats here, like I don't know the context of who it was sent to. We didn't get the subject line when it was sent. These are just ideas and suggestions, right? We're thinking about. I'm not saying this is right or wrong necessarily. And then we didn't go into like where this linked to and the donation page and the value and things like that. So looking at this email a little bit more specifically, off the hop. So here's an image, which again, is it good? Is it bad? I'm not sure. But who are these kids? Are they just random kids? Are they from a school program? You know, have a caption or tell me in your copy. This little like teaser text, letter from the executive director. So it's clear that's what this is. It's not exactly inspiring, intriguing, or exciting, but I guess it is clear. So the main point of this email is this vote for them. They want you to go to this program page and vote so they can maybe win $100,000. But so they want me to vote, but then they provide a link to their just general website, which then doesn't give me information on how to vote for them. So be careful when adding multiple links. Like, what is it that you want me to do? You want me to vote, so link me to vote. Also, the bolding is good in emails typically. I'm not sure I would bold the things that they bolded. They bolded a lot of things that are cool to them, like Scarborough Arts and kind of why they existed. I'd probably build or bold more things like children who've been impacted, or some of the more like needs that they have, or as opposed to just information. And then in this bottom statement, this is where they start getting into maybe the ask or appeal. And if you read it, which you don't have to, we believe, we know, right? What do I believe, right? Even just starting that sentence of the, do you believe that providing access to high quality arts education is important? So do we, or something like, make me a part of the conversation. Don't just tell me what you think. That's very unengaging. Then we get into the second part of this email, and we find out that this funding is coming to an end and they really need your support. This is really important. This is urgent. Like, why isn't this more front and centered and more focused and urgent and called that out, right? They need this. Again, you want me to vote, but then you're providing more information to just generally go on your website, which maybe isn't ideal. And so kind of the summary here is like, if you want me to vote, that's the point of this email, then the whole thing should be crafted on how can you get me to vote. I think a big thing, and this is a point at the bottom, a big problem that we have when we don't send emails enough regularly is we'll send an email and then we need it, or we want it to do all kinds of things. We want it to catch people up on information that they've missed in the past. We want them to let them know about this new program that's coming up. And oh, by the way, we also want you to vote. And oh, in case you don't know who we are or forget, here's where you can find out more about us. So if you send more emails more frequently and you're building up that engagement over time, when it comes time to say, we need your support, or we need you to vote, or we'd like you to vote, or here's how you can participate, you don't need to do all that other background information. You can craft an email that's focused on why should someone vote, why now, what's the difference, and do that without needing to go into all that other stuff. So I don't know if that's what happened here, but it does happen all the time, is if you send out an email just once a month even, or once a quarter, like that is not nearly enough to keep people educated, engaged, and updated on your work. All right, last one here, same context, don't know all this stuff coming into it, so these are just ideas and suggestions. One, as a template, again, this isn't what you want people to do. You don't want them to learn about those things. You're having a very specific ask to a specific donation. So those links and information are just distractions. This is a good opener, right? Chance of a generation. You can be part, it's like, oh, I'm interested, go on. Now you better fulfill that promise. They have some good match language. Matching is almost always a good tool to use in fundraising campaigns. So they have good match language. So they have two programs. So if you see here, they talk about the South Okanagan with some information, and then they talk about the Southern Strait of Georgia. Again, I don't know the context, but having two separate programs is generally not a great idea in one email. It causes decision friction. Now, how do I compare one program versus the other? Is one better than the other? I can't learn more about each easily because I click one and then I'm gone away. So, and also having double donate buttons can be annoying on the eye and sound like you're being really aggressive. This picture is a little weird, like he's, you know, just dreamily looking into your eyes. But also I'm not sure what value it adds knowing the picture of Bruce, so I'd probably just remove it. Plus it creates some unnecessary white space. This is a good job on the PS of reiterating the statement and value, but because they've used that kind of weird photo of Bruce and taken up so much space, and then have this distracting footer, it kind of, the PS gets a little lost. So by simplifying the design and maybe bolding parts of the PS, you could recall out that that bottom part. So again, the design is probably a little distracting overall. Really consider taking something like that out of a template. Double donation buttons are just like screaming, so be careful. Some good language in there though, in terms of the offer and a match. Just probably not focus on two separate programs because that's a lot of information for people to take in. So again, these are like some suggestions, and both for those two, but then also just in general about how to better get, send, and optimize emails. But you really got to test it out for yourself to know what actually works and what actually doesn't. Whew. That's it. We got some time for questions. Here's where you can find me. That's my email, brady@shiftagency.co, Twitter @BradyJosephson, and then all these various websites where you can learn more about me and the different things that I'm up to.
Fantastic. Thank you, Brady. This was a really informative presentation, and now we have a little bit of time to move into questions from the audience. So if you haven't entered your questions yet, please do so now by using the questions chat box in your GoToWebinar panel. I'll get started with the ones that have come in during the presentation. First one is from E. Jones. How can you actually measure donations that result from click-throughs?
Yeah, it's a good question. So this is where ideally you would have your donation tracking set up in Google Analytics, preferably with e-commerce, but at the very least as a conversion or a goal, so you can know how many people donated. And then your email programs often come with some default custom links, so that when you look in Google Analytics by channel or campaign or by even source medium, it'll be tagged as email. The problem is that different email programs work differently. So for us, we'll actually use something called UTM codes. There's a tool called UTM Maker where you can put in the link that you want to send people to, like your donation page, and then you can just answer the campaign, year-end, medium, email, source, house file, content, email one. And then it'll create you a UTM special link. So when you use that link in your email, then if you go into Google Analytics, you can see exactly which email led to donations. And if it's tied to e-commerce, you can see how many donations. So it's often a big tracking problem. This is where a lot of donation tools are really, really terrible. They don't allow you to track properly. And this is where some email tools are pretty terrible, where they don't allow you to do good tracking as well. So it should be easy, but it's often not. But UTM links and a donation tracking in Google Analytics is the short answer.
Great. This one's from James. How do CASEL guidelines apply to email fundraising in Canada for not-for-profit or charity-based organizations?
Yeah, great question. I know I have a slightly different view maybe than even TechSoup does, but so CASEL does not apply to fundraising communication. So if someone has made a donation or your purpose is fundraising and solicitation, you do not need to worry about CASEL. So people who've made a donation can receive emails from you and fundraising emails. You do not need people to explicitly opt in to get fundraising communication. CASEL wasn't built as well to like guard against nonprofits who are asking for money. It is really built to guard against spammers and nefarious ways to collect email addresses. So there's some great principles in there, like having an unsubscribe button. You do need that in your emails. You have to allow people to unsubscribe. But we got unnecessarily freaked out in terms of, oh, everyone has to re-opt into our email list and things like that. Now, if you're advocacy, if you're selling stuff, that gets into a slightly different territory, consult a lawyer. But if you're like most kind of quote unquote normal charities and nonprofits, you can collect and send emails without really worrying too much about CASEL on the acquisition side.
Great. From Kate, what's the best way to engage an emailing list that hasn't received a newsletter in a while?
Yeah, so the cheeky answer is don't let it get to that point where they haven't received an email in a while. An imperfect email sent more regularly is much better than the perfect email sent infrequently, right? So even if it's like, oh man, we don't have this great content, you have to get in the practice of sending emails more regularly, because a drop off in communication is one of the worst things that you can do in trying to build an email file. But if that has happened, so maybe two things. One, plan ahead so that when you start emailing again, you won't have another big drop off. So maybe take the time to say, okay, we're actually going to wait one more month, but then we're going to have planned the next 6 or 8 emails to make sure that this won't happen again in the near term. That's a good usage of time. You can acknowledge the fact that maybe they haven't heard from you in a while. At one level, that's a very human thing to do, right? Like, oh, you haven't heard from us. Sorry, we've been working away, or something like that. You just kind of acknowledge it. At one level, you're maybe opening up at another level, you're opening up a question that they're maybe not asking, like, oh, you're right, I haven't heard from you in a while. So honestly, I'd say just more figure out the plan to make sure that that doesn't happen again. Now, if they were like an offline email that you've been sitting on and just haven't uploaded to the system, say after a gala event and now it's 2 months after, you may want to think about a special little like welcome series specifically to them, kind of saying why they're getting emails now and then also what they can expect moving forward.
This one's from Blair. Would you recommend having a donation button or option at the bottom of all your email newsletters, or would you only send out specific donation emails?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I'm a little split, but for the most part, my belief on email is one email, one action, one purpose, one message. So that doesn't always need to be donations. It can be read our newsletter. It can be read the annual report. In which case, I'd say take the donation button off there. That's not what you're asking people to do. It's not what the intent of the email is. Some people perceive a donate button as an ask, right? This is why donors sometimes feel like they're getting asked all the time, even though they're really not. And so then also when it comes time to make a donation, then you can be very specific about making a donation, having a donation button. So I'd say, yeah, probably remove it if you can and focus on more specific asks. But if you do have like a general quarterly newsletter or something like that, that template's probably more okay to have a donation button. I'm more in the camp of take it off and make your donation asks be specific, and your other ones make sure that they're not.
Great. We have a few questions specifically from Nish and Ronan around A/B testing. What's the best approach to do an A/B campaign? How do you make it effective, and what sample size is needed for it to be proper? Yeah,
great questions. Sample size, one, it depends. So there's a cool tool. I didn't have it in there. Optimizely has a tool where you can calculate how big of a sample size you actually need. So basically, the more wide or the more variance in the result, the smaller sample size you need. So you could have a very valid experiment with just 500 emails. Just you're going to need to see, say, like a click-through rate of 20 versus 2 for it to stand out. So generally speaking, you kind of need to split into audiences of 5,000 to have a good chance of getting a statistically significant result. And I say the minimum is a bit more like 1,000. So in which case you need to send to 2,000 people so that 1,000 get each. This isn't to say if you can't get those numbers, you shouldn't test. I think you should. I think the culture of testing is great and it provides little insights. And it's not like you're writing a research paper where your stuff needs to be statistically significant and validated by the research community. So if you run a test and you feel like it was useful and more insight into your donors, you can keep running the test or not. But generally speaking, 1,000. Then the key things there in terms of running a good A/B test, again, is what's the goal? Is it we just want to get more people to open an email? That's a fine test if you want. Then something like subject line is huge. Your design has no bearing. Yeah, pretty much no bearing on whether or not someone opens an email. So choose your goal and then make sure you design a test that will reach that goal, and then make sure you can track it. So again, if you want your goal to be, will this email lead to more donations, and you want to do plain versus designed, you have to have the ability to track donations, because opens and click-throughs are not the metric for which you want to run your test on. A couple of key things as well, run it at the same time. So you can't run it, we'll send this email this month and then this email next month. That's not a great way to test. A lot can change in a month. So splitting it in the audiences at the same time is important.
So Jacqueline and many of our other attendees probably use sites like CanadaHelps.org to collect donations. And those sites don't provide a lot of customization ability for design. What do you recommend in working with these kinds of sites?
Yeah, it's a good question. Canada Helps is actually better than a lot of kind of free or third-party tools. So what you can do in Canada Helps is, you can embed the form on your own donation on your own website instead of linking out to Canada Helps. That's generally encouraged. So that's the one thing that you can do, and then you can kind of control the donation page, not maybe as much the customization of the form. 2, Canada Helps is the option where you can forward people to a confirmation page after a donation. So you can create a page like /donate/thank-you, and that's where you can just say, thank you for your donation, here's where you can learn more, or follow us on social media or something like that. So if you can point back to that page, then you can create a goal in Google Analytics. Even if people hit your page and donate through an embedded form, or even if they go out to Canada Helps and back, it gets more imperfect the more linking out in embedded forms, but you can actually do goal tracking that way, in which case you could then kind of see a little bit more about where donations came from. Again, it gets trickier linking out. And then I chatted with someone at Canada Helps a few months ago, and I was having this conversation. And I think they have a few more features in terms of integrating Google Analytics into their donation forms than I even thought possible. So it's maybe worth a call or a chat. I don't know how good their customer support is, but there may be some other ways where you can even get into things like e-commerce. But that is kind of a downside of free or cheap tools, is you often get cut out of a lot of the tracking and customization. So you're trading that off for a cheaper price.
All right, I think that's a great place to end it. I want to thank Brady again for sharing your expertise with us, and thank you to all of our participants and attendees for taking time out of your day to take part. So just a reminder, we'll be posting the recording of the webinar along with Brady's slide deck and a recap to our website within the next week or so. Also, please do fill out the brief post-webinar survey that will launch after this session. If you have any additional questions, or if you're interested in having Brady contact you directly. So thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.